Hi, Mystery Writers. Welcome to the Mystery Writers Studio. And today I want to talk about something super important for your mystery, and that is how to introduce your detective in your mystery. Because your detective serves as the driving force behind your story, and their distinct qualities and quirks are what makes them memorable to your readers. And you want to get them introduced right away because your detective is your reader's guide to solving that mystery puzzle. Uh, when readers begin your story, they want to know certain elements in your mystery, and in a mystery, your reader wants to know your detective. Uh, they want to know that your sleuth is a character they want to follow as they solve the puzzle. Scott Myers, who's a screenwriting specialist, says go into the story, and that's just so important. It's what you want to do with your detective. Go into the story. New authors often struggle with what to do and how to do that and how to present the main character's ordinary world as it is. And sometimes they do that by presenting the ordinary world as ordinary, and that's not what you want to do. So things like waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror, and noticing their physical description, you don't want to do that. Readers want to see your protagonist in action. It is the best way for them to understand who they are and how they work. So, how do you introduce your detective? In that first chapter, you want to right away let them know what the detective's name is and also one of their skills. You probably have several detecting skills lined up for your character, and so show them using that skill in action. Um, their character's name gives your reader instant access to your detective. That's it. They know who they are. They know who they are. And you cement that character's name in your reader's mind. And the skill demonstrates a strength your detective will use later on in the story to actually solve the mystery, but you want to, and your reader connects that skill with this character that they now know their name, all right? And so it doesn't have to be a big to do. You just want to show them using that skill um, in your opening scene with your detective. Your reader wants to know how your character operates. And you want to do this because this is the point where your reader can say, yep, really like this character, want to follow them through the story, I'm going to read more, or they're going to not engage and, worst of all possible worlds, put your book down and never pick it up again. So, the sooner you introduce these two elements, the sooner your reader has an emotional tie to your sleuth. And that emotional tie is the hook that spurs them to continue with your sleuth and the story. So, this emotional tie is just as important a hook, as it were, because we get told about, using a hook at the beginning, but you want that emotional hook right away. So it's really important to solidify your character in your reader's mind. Um, so setting narrative and backstory do not create an emotional hook. So you want to get to your detective. And this means, how do you start? How do you start? How do you do this? Um, Making a decision about starting your mystery influences everything that comes afterwards in your story. And knowing you need to introduce your detective soon, you need to make a story so you can set the story in motion. So, this is your little mini story that introduces your character and creates that connection that your readers want uh, be- because they empathize with your detective. Um, and and that is what connects them. It sets the tone for everything that happens later. So your opening is kind of like this appetizer for the main dish, the big puzzle that's coming later. And that's why you want your detective right at the beginning. Um, the way you start your story, the mood, the tone, the setting influences how you introduce your detective. So let's look at 3 different ways you can start with introducing your character. One is action. So start in the middle of things happening. It's called in media res, and show your detective in action, perhaps closing up another case. And the focus is on your detective doing something that illustrates either a skill or a weakness, because the weakness is going to get your detective in trouble later on in the story. Yeah, so think of the opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he escapes through Rolling Rock and all that stuff, and he hops in the plane and the snake. And so that's a dramatic example of how to introduce a weakness. He's afraid of snakes. Even he does all this dashing, daring do. Um, Snakes are his weakness. So this isn't the main story yet. It just introduces your main character and a special skill. So action is one way that you can start your story and introduce your character. Another way is dialogue. And once again, the best way is to start in media res. So bring your reader into an ongoing conversation that involves your detective. And this is going to give him a sense of how your character relates to other people, whomever he's speaking with. Um, and it can be either face to face, and often in television and film it's on the phone. The detective gets a phone call. um, but anyway, there's a conversation right away, so you're giving your detective something to say in this dialogue that uh, illustrates a skill. So we have action, we have dialogue. And third way to introduce your character is with a question. And the question is a strong way to open a story with a first person point of view. So if you're writing in first person rather than third person, um, the narrator is your detective, right? And your sleuth can question why they are where they are, or why another character is acting a certain way. And what this does, I know I've talked about giving your character opinions, and this question can right away illustrate an opinion they have about other people or the culture that they're in, or how to proceed with life. Um, but anyway, however you do it, action, dialogue, and a question is right away you want to give your reader that sense of who your detective is and how they operate in the world, and illustrate at least one of their detecting skills. And that's because your detective carries the story. That is the reason you want to do this. You want to get your reader connected with your detective and your story right away. And the primary concept for introducing your character is to show them in action. They are doing something, they are being who they are, right? So reveal how they act and respond to the world they are in right now at the beginning. So this is much better than some kind of static scene where they get up in the morning and then they look in the mirror and now your reader knows they're tall, dark, and handsome, or short, redheaded, and female. It doesn't matter. Those are not the things that engage your reader. What engages your reader is how your detective operates, because you're giving them that hint, that little appetizer of what's going to come later. Oh, this is how this character works. And and I want to see them in action. I want to see them solve this mystery puzzle that's coming up, right? Because mystery readers are there for the puzzle. All right. So this is the setup for the rest of your story. And meeting your detective is the primary goal. You have the rest of your novel to expand on the setting, introduce other characters, and plunge your detective into the mystery puzzle of your story. But for now, you want to build empathy between your reader and your detective. Okay, that's it for today. And if you have any questions, please add them in the comments because I love to answer questions. And also keep writing. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week in Mystery Writers Studio.